Previously, we did an overview of what the new Dragon Delves anthology was all about, but I kept it as spoiler-free as I could. Today's video is going to be chock full of spoilers. GameMasters here, and in that initial first look video, I got a lot of comments asking for more information about each of the adventures, for spoilers, so as to not disappoint those that took their time to comment and ask. That's exactly what we're going to do here today. If you don't want to know any of the mysteries of the adventures involved, this would be the right time to watch a different video. Before we jump into it, if you are wanting a spoiler-free rundown of exactly what Dragon Delves is, in a nutshell, it's a book of adventures, 10 total, with each one revolving around a dragon. If you want to check out my first look video that details how to use the book and what kind of information it contains, I'll link to that video up here. And again, it's spoiler-free and contains no in-depth goodies about the adventures themselves. If, however, you want it all spoiled away, grab your beverage of choice. Let me know what you're drinking down in the comments. Sit back and enjoy. This is going to be a pretty long video today. The spoilers begin now. The first adventure is called Death at Sunset, and it is designed specifically for level 1 characters. However, should you want to start them off at level 2, it details instructions on an area to skip so that you can do exactly that. This adventure also revolves around a green dragon. Each adventure lists out key plot points, as well as some basic preparation notes for the DM, as well as a list of key NPCs. And I'm going to touch on all of that in each adventure that we look at and talk about today. The key the key plot points for Death at Sunset details out the Redwood Watch. It's a village of elves found in a grove of trees, and that 2 of the elders there have tasked the adventurers to seek out what is causing the trees to suffer from blight. It goes on to detail that the characters will discover that the cause is unnatural, and that it is caused by a green dragon wormling. The chapter also suggests to the DM to prepare by reading the adventure background, something that we are going to check out in just a moment, but to also look over the key NPCs, which is a list of the various NPCs and monsters that the players are going to encounter. And in the case of the monsters, it really recommends to bookmark them either in the monster manual or have them pulled up if you're using the digital version on D&D Beyond. As for the adventure background, Death at Sunset takes place in an area called Redwood. It is a grove of sorts where centuries in the past, 6 different factions of elves were at war with each other. They eventually reconciled, and each faction planted a redwood sapling in a circle. This was to represent their coming together and end peace. After many years, those saplings would grow into mighty trees, now referred to as Redwood Grove. But the elves noticed that something was poisoning the mighty redwoods, a green dragon, which they named Death at Sunset, because it would mostly attack at sunset. But it was that dragon that was poisoning the trees. It had made its lair under the trees in their root system. The 6 factions of elves sent an elf warrior to defeat Death at Sunset 100 years ago. That warrior slew the dragon, but died in the process. The elves then left the grove, leaving only a handful behind, known as the Redwood Watch. Fast forward 100 years, and the Redwood Watch has grown into a small population, but have noticed that the trees are once again becoming sickly and poisoned. To make matters worse, 4 of the villagers have recently disappeared. Introduce the player characters, and they are tasked with resolving the situation. Now, this is where I feel that the adventure needed a little attention. That perhaps whatever team or whoever it was that wrote this adventure didn't quite pull from actual dragon lore. And I'll explain. During the course of the adventure, as we just detailed, the characters will discover that it's a green dragon wormling that has hatched only 5 years ago. Remember that the dragon Death at Sunset was slain 100 years ago. Now, this green dragon wormling is the new cause of the trees wilting and becoming sick, and it has been named Sunset is Nigh, and has taken up residence in his mother's old lair. Now, since that's where he was hatched, again, 5 years ago. Now, why I have an issue here? According to the dragon lore in Dungeons & Dragons, green dragon eggs have an incubation period of about 480 days. That's roughly a year and a half. If death at sunset, and let's assume she laid her egg the same day she was killed, not likely, but we're going to assume that was still over 100 years ago. That means that the egg would have hatched at least 98 and a half years prior, but instead the adventure details out that it hatched 5 years ago, which means it incubated for close to 95 years. Okay, I get it. Maybe I'm being a bit nitpicky, but I'd like a bit of consistency with the lore, especially with something as basic as dragon lore. There are other little things that bother me. For example, it cites that when role-playing Sunset is Nigh, that he, and I quote, proudly references his mother's name. Yet she died 100 years ago. This guy hatched 5 years ago. There is no mention of a daddy green dragon, so how do he know his mama's name? Only thing I can think of is that the missing elves talked about her and referenced her name in the Wormling's presence. I don't know. I'm also not too fond of the Wormling presenting himself to the characters. There's a point in the adventure where he announces his presence, and he says, "It is I, Sunset is Nigh. Enter my lair and find your doom." And I just can't help but feel that that's just very uncreative. As a DM, I'd likely reword it. I'd drop it announcing its name. It has no intention to let them live, so why bother with providing a name here? You only do that if you want notoriety and want others to know it, but this Wormling is intent on destroying the adventurers, so there's no point in him announcing his name. Instead, I would probably reword it to something like, "Fools! You tread where even sunlight flees. Enter and let your bones be forgotten." And I feel that this lends more taunt and arrogance that is benefiting of a green dragon to its announcement and opening. And one thing I do like is that it tells how the Wormling has taken over its mother lair, but lives in and moves inside of his mother's skeleton. The imagery painted there gives me a lot of descriptive visuals that I can work with as a DM. The map of the lair is pretty cool too. And of course, centered within is the skeleton of Death at Sunset, around which hangs a poisonous fog. Upon defeating the Wormling, there is a tiny treasure hoard, with the key item found being a Dragon Slayer longsword named Leaf Warden. All in all, the adventure itself is not bad. As I mentioned, it's got a few elements that I don't like, elements that I would most certainly tweak to make sense for me and my table, and they're not terribly difficult to alter. Death at Sunset flows well enough and is great for first-time DMs, but 2 is perfectly fine for an experienced DM to flesh out to suit their needs and their table's needs. Next up is Baker's Doesn't. Baker's Doesn't is different. To me, it's a very non-serious adventure, best described as whimsical. It's designed for level 3 characters and should take about 1 or 2 sessions to play through. The key plot points detail that you are in a town called Hubbleton and are helping a halfling pastry maker named Edith Applegarth. Her shop was accidentally burned down by a gold dragon. Turns out someone else in town, a baker named Phil Flowerforge, was raising in secret a gold dragon wormling named Briochebane, and that wormling accidentally set fire to the pastry shop. In the course of the adventure, the characters will run across a candy cottage where a hag named Uncle Nibblecheek has captured the wormling. Like I said, this is a very non-serious adventure, but to help prepare for it, the adventure suggests to the DM to read the adventure section, and like in the previous adventure, to make notes of the various key NPCs and bookmark the monster manual or D&D Beyond. To elaborate on the adventure, Phil, the baker, uses the gold dragon wormling's fire to bake his goods. The wormling is a bit obstinate, little touch rebellious, and well, I don't want to mess this up, so I'm just going to kind of read it word for word from how it's presented here. Unknown to these townsfolk, Phil uses dragon fire to bake his goods. When the unruly gold dragon wormling that Phil is raising goes missing, the same day Hubbleton's newest confectionery goes up in smoke, the characters become embroiled in a fairy tale plot that leads to the cottage of a hag with a detestable palate. I've mentioned this before, but yeah, this adventure is a bit juvenile, and it is really unlike any other officially published WotC adventure that I've seen. The artwork also reflects this whimsical nature. Mind you, it's not bad artwork, but it's really a sidestep from what one would consider current traditional D&D art. After investigating the town itself, the characters will trek off into the woods and will eventually find themselves at the Candy Cottage. Now, let me clarify. It may appear that I'm giving some shit about the style of the artwork. I'm not. I actually rather like it. It's just that it's a bit different than what we've come to expect, which I suspect may have been the reason for the art direction and theme of this adventure, if for any other reason than to provide something, well, different. But anyway, upon finding the Candy Cottage, the bulk of the adventure will take place here. The map for it is pretty cool, again sticking with that whimsical theme and artwork. Almost everything the players find inside this Candy Cottage is going to be edible, but I would avoid eating anything in or around the outhouse. While the adventure specifies that it's built from chocolate planks, and that the seat you plop your ass down on is also made of chocolate, I just don't recommend eating anything found there. There is, however, a spell book inside that outhouse should you want some reading material. But as far as I can tell, there are no benefits to eating anything around the cottage itself. However, a good amount of it can be used to bribe a giant cyclopean baby doll. It's normally under the command of the hag, but giving it candy will give it reason to ignore the hag's commands. If you search carefully in the basement, you'll encounter an NPC, a skeleton named Mr. Jellybean, who carries a +1 great axe. There are other little items that you can discover too, but should you succeed in bringing the gold dragon wormling back to Phil Flowerforge, your reward is 100 gold and a box of warm pastries. But again, it does not mention if consuming the pastries do anything upon eating them, so DM, use your discretion there if you want to give a bonus. Baker's Doesn't is a silly adventure that, and I gotta be honest, for my table, we'd likely skip it. If I was running the game for a bunch of really young players or a group of completely new players, I can see it being much more viable. Is it fun? Yeah, sure. Is it a serious adventure? Not so much. The next venture, however, is very much a serious one. The Will of Orcus is designed for level 4 characters and revolves around a silver dragon wormling, and of course an evil cult of Orcus. The key plot points cite that an innkeeper tasks the characters with investigating evil cultists that have taken up residence in a nearby temple of Orcus, as opposed to good aligned cultists that worship Orcus. I digress. The characters will find themselves at a place called Death's Bane Tavern, located in the mountain village of Graysmere. And remember that village name, because I'm going to talk about it a little bit towards the end of this chapter. But the characters will be asked to infiltrate the temple, and upon getting in, they will learn that a silver dragon is hidden within, and is sowing dissent within the cult so that they cannot leach as much evil out into the world. This cult has found an abandoned temple of Orcus deep in the mountains, and is attempting to reclaim it, finding an undamaged statue of Orcus at the temple's heart. But what's more, the cult's leader claims to be communing directly with Orcus via that statue. Thing is, it's not Orcus. It's a silver dragon wormling. And it's using these chats with the leader with other members of the cult to turn them against each other. The bulk of the Will of Orcus takes place within the ruined temple itself. Inside, you can expect to encounter human cultists, ghasts, ghosts, some cool zombie ogres, as well as your garden variety zombies. You'll find a few spell scrolls, a +1 whip, a wand of secrets, and big spoiler, it's hidden behind a loose stone in one of the cells, and several other treasures that can in turn be sold for gold or bartered for other goods. The adventure can go a couple of ways. The Silver Dragon Wormling watches and assesses the character's actions. If they run from the battles or otherwise don't accomplish the task of defeating the cult members, that Wormling will test them via a random command, which the DM can roll via a 1d6 table. For example, rolling a 2 and the command may be, "Bring me a wheel of cheese." Or rolling a 6 and that command may be, "Bring me the head of something evil." The commands themselves seem to be fairly harmless, but again, keep in mind this Wormling is acting via the statue to be Orcus, and the Silver Dragons themselves are not evil by nature. And with this being a Wormling, it's really uneducated in the true ways of what evil is. But should the players pass its test or initially prove themselves in battle, it will befriend them and explain that it's attempting to stop the evils of the cult from spreading any further, and that it's been giving them mundane evil acts to keep them otherwise occupied, such as bringing it, a wheel of cheese. Upon eradicating the evil cult and returning to the tavern, they will be rewarded with 200 gold each. Now, at the beginning of this chapter, we mentioned that the Death's Bane Tavern is located in the mountain village of Graysmere. While this adventure does not mention this, Graysmere is a mountain fortification of dwarves that is located in the world setting of Greyhawk. This adventure does mention that the tavern is run by an Aasimar, and that Aasimar's parents were retired adventurers that had once defeated a cult of Orcus in that very temple years prior. While it does not provide to us the names of those adventurers, and while I do recall the name Graysmere, I've researched but have not been able to come up with any connection to previous adventures that mention either who they might have been or anything about Deathsbane's Tavern. Not anything in 5th edition, 4th, 3rd, or even going back to AD&D. If it sparks a memory for you, let me know down in the comments where you think it's from, or what adventure it may have been from. For now, let's check out For Whom the Void Calls. Up to this point, the dragons in each adventure have been both wormlings as well as of a good nature. For Whom the Void Calls involves an evil young brass dragon and is designed for characters that are level 5. Now, when I say that it involves an evil young brass dragon, well, remember that thought. I'm going to bring it up in just a bit. The artwork gives off a very trippy 60s blacklight vibe. The key plot points are that the characters get a telepathic distress call claiming to be from a sentient bag of holding that was stolen by an evil brass dragon, and it's begging for them to rescue it. The twist is, it's not actually a bag of holding, but is instead a bag of devouring, and is the mouth of an evil extra-dimensional creature that lives in the far realm. The characters will head to Starglass Waypoint, a place originally built for Githyanki and Modrons to train other Githyanki and Modrons. A year ago, an evil young brass dragon took it over as its lair, keeping the Modrons there as guards, so says the Bag of Holding. This overview does not specify what happened to the Githyanki other than that they are now at a different fortress on the astral plane. The brass dragon would hide treasure in what it thought was a bag of holding, only to find the treasure missing. It accused the Modrons of stealing that treasure and collapsed the main tunnels leading to its lair to prevent passage. It would be at this point that the characters would receive the telepathic distress signal, again presenting itself as the Bag of Holding. The reality is the Bag of Devouring, which is actually the mouth, like we said, of an extraplanar entity, is hungry, and with the tunnel sealed off, it's not getting any more gems or coins or otherwise food, so it's seeking help and being rescued. The maps provided here are of an old-school traditional boxy graph papery layout, something that is incredibly easy for me to read and understand right away. And it is in the Starglass Waypoint that the bulk of this adventure is going to take place. The entirety of Starglass Waypoint has a bit of futuristic tone to it, both in description but as well as in function. There are panels with blinking lights, levers found all over the place, sensors, switches, dials, all throughout. And of course a large astral gate. However, it's broken, and I can't be repaired. I figure that this is a plot point to keep the characters from going off the map and into the astral plane while still giving the hint of a much larger world. Players can expect to encounter Modrons, Githyanki, and of course the young brass dragon, and the previously mentioned bag of devouring here. There is plenty of treasure to be found in this adventure, but not much beyond what is something you would expect to find in a level 5 adventure. You'll find stuff like a potion of healing, there's a +1 spear, a stone of controlling earth elementals, a ring of jumping, as well as other assorted goodies. Of course, you'll find the bag of holding, which again is actually a bag of devouring, which again is actually a mouth to an extraplanar being. The culmination of this adventure is rescuing that bag of holding, discovering its true nature, and revealing what it really is to the brass dragon, who turns out to not be evil at all. That the entity was just saying it was evil to help push the dire need of rescue into the characters' minds, providing that information to the good brass dragon, and it lets you keep the bag for whatever reason the characters may want, as well as any items found inside Starglass Waypoint, but nothing from its personal hoard. Sorry. Continuing our streak of good dragons, the next adventure involves a young bronze dragon. The Dragon of Najkir is designed for level 7 characters and involves a young bronze dragon. The key plot points for this adventure cite that the adventurers are hired to travel via sailing ship to the island of Najkir to seek out 3 shipwreck survivors. On the way there, a bronze dragon sinks their ship as it is protecting a human that is living on the island, who is secretly there to avoid punishment for his crimes. He's an assassin. Shh. The bronze dragon, for reasons, is beholden to him, but so that other ships do not suffer from this dragon's attack, the characters must relay to that dragon the human's crimes so that it will no longer be in service to that assassin. So, once again, we are dealing with a good aligned dragon. A bronze dragon was raised by a noble human house. As a wormling, he trained alongside a valorous knight and later served as her mount. After her death in battle 15 years ago, he fled in grief. He found refuge at a remote island monastery she once visited, where he befriended the monks and claimed a cave beneath the cliffs. Over time, he protected the island and gathered treasures from nearby shipwrecks that he didn't cause, just salvaging the treasures, and the monks welcomed his presence. 6 months ago, the knight's son arrived, seeking shelter from family enemies. The monks took him in, and he quickly bonded with the dragon, who hadn't seen him since childhood. What no one knows is that the son once led an assassin's guild, recently destroyed by rival factions. Now in hiding, he's pushed the dragon towards paranoia, urging it to destroy any ships that get near the island as he fears that the authorities are coming for him. 6 days ago, the dragon sank a passing ship. 3 survivors swam ashore and reached the monastery. The monks gave them shelter. One recognized the assassin. A monk overheard and told the monastery's hierarch, who asked this man to leave peacefully. He refused. The bulk of this adventure takes place within the monastery and other nearby areas. Treasure is sparse, but there are assorted items that the characters can pick up. Mundane things, really. Stuff like blankets, glass bottles, candles, stuff like that. And keep in mind, it's a monastery, so powerful possessions aren't really their thing. The core of the adventure is to find the assassin and reveal his nature to the dragon. The assassin, one Ronum Deimos, is a neutral evil assassin and hides deep within the monastery and is protected by 2 doppelgangers and an Oni. Now, careful with her, she's going to be invisible upon first encounter. But why the monks don't take you directly to the assassin isn't really made clear. I mean, sure, they can't just go against their nature, as they are there to protect anyone who asks for their help. But they did ask the guy to leave, so again, one would think they would simply tell the characters where to find him. But they don't. The culmination of this adventure is a little complex. The bronze dragon is committed to protecting Ronum, entering its lair, and it will likely attack the players on sight, because again, it's in protection mode. Should they battle it and it finds itself losing, it's going to retreat. But if Ronum is also in the lair and the characters fight him, then they can compel him to confess his crimes in the presence of the dragon, who will, in turn, feel betrayed for protecting Ronum, and then side with the characters, and it will then, at that point, agree to no longer sink ships. There are a few ways that this adventure could ultimately end, and I do like that it presents a sandbox of choices. You can either flat out eliminate Ronum, and by doing so the dragon will be furious, but will no longer attack ships. You can beat the snot out of the dragon and let it retreat, and while it's gone, of course, from its lair, you can subdue Ronum and bring him back home to face justice. You, of course, also can, as we just described, get him to confess his crimes in front of the dragon. And I like that those choices are given there. Should the characters bring him back alive, they will get a 5,000 gold piece reward. With some good dragons under our belt, you guys ready to see some evil dragon adventures? The Forbidden Vale is designed for level 9 characters and revolves around a red dragon. The key plot points are that a red dragon is lighting wildfires around a small town known as Arborian Springs. The party is tasked with stopping the fires and giving the option to slay the red dragon or to use a potion to put it into a deep slumber. There are a myriad of different classic monsters presented in this adventure. You'll find the Behir, the Poulet, a Chimera, a fire elemental, a Grick, a Hydra, Manticore, a Mephit. The list goes on and on. A wise DM will want to bookmark these in their monster manual. Every 200 years, as the adventure background goes, an ancient red dragon would warn others to stay away from its veil by taking to the skies and burning everything around. The Forbidden Vale's background further states that a young red dragon has been born from the ashes of the ancient red dragon in that same veil, which isn't really how red dragons are born. So again, we have a little bit of a lore issue here. Dragons come from eggs. The phoenix can rise from ashes, but dragons are born from eggs. I digress. This young dragon wants to carry on its predecessor's actions and will take to the skies to burn the area in an attempt to keep others from settling there. Guys, I can't help but digress again. According to lore, an ancient dragon is considered ancient, while it's 801 to 1,000 years of age. That a young dragon is considered young between the ages of 51 and 100 years. If this young dragon was born from the ashes of an ancient red dragon, assume it was born from ashes. If it was born after the ancient dragon died, how's it going to know what the actions of its predecessors were? How do it know to burn the veil? I really do like the artwork used to depict the map. In an earlier adventure, I spoke about a graphy, papery look that to one of the maps. This one is hex-drawn and takes on some AD&D coloring, which I also find super easy to read and gives me a lot of the nostalgia feels. The adventure takes place in and around this Forbidden Vale and is a vast adventure, where the previous adventures that we've gone over might take about 8 hours or less or so to complete. I can see this one taking us at least 3, maybe 4 sessions to get through. There are a lot of locations, items, and battles throughout. Danger is around almost every corner, as are various magic items. For example, there is a sword of vengeance that can be found in an alcove in a garden. Of course, to get it, as well as other items found in other alcoves in that same garden, you'll need to defeat a spirit naga and its servants, or otherwise negotiate with them. An item of note found in the Red Dragon's Hoard is a cube of summoning that lets you roll a 1d6, and based on the roll, it will summon forth the spirit of either an aberration, a beast, a construct, a dragon, an elemental, or a fae to help assist you in your fights or other actions. There are magical plants that you can, they can give you a boost. For example, the Arcadian lotus flower can remove all exhaustion levels and ends the poison condition. Plus, it allows one to regain their maximum number of hit points after a rest just by smelling its fragrance. Of course, the culmination of this adventure is to either eradicate the red dragon or put it to sleep. Doing either should allow the characters to pilfer its hoard, but otherwise, no other reward is given upon completion of this adventure. Pushing on, and our next adventure deals with the Black Dragon. Before the Storm is designed for level 10 characters and revolves around an evil adult black dragon. The stakes here are immediately raised, specifically due to the fact that we're dealing with an adult dragon here. The key plot points in Before the Storm is that there are pirates that have raided a village, and the characters are tasked with rescuing villagers from a burning tavern. Once they've gone into the tavern and rescued all of the villagers from inside, once that's done, the village's mayor then hires them to get 2 stolen magic gems that shield the village from massive storms. The gems are located in a pirate's lair, but they will learn that an evil adult dragon is somewhat leading the pirates, so the characters will have to deal with both crazy pirates as well as that adult black dragon. The map artwork reminds me a good bit of 4th edition maps. It's not bad. It has kind of a 3-dimensional look to it. There are 2 key locations that this adventure takes place in, the village of Respite and the Pirate's Cove called Cobblehook Cove. The bulk of the adventure takes place within the cove. Inside, you're going to, of course, have to find the 2 magic items that the players have been tasked with getting, 2 elemental gems. These originally belong embedded in a weather vane that was created years ago by a friendly djinn, which in turn channeled and protected the village of Respite from violent weather. With these 2 gemstones stolen, foul winds and weather threaten to destroy that village. The cove itself is, of course, a pirate's hideout. Oddly, it does not contain any more treasure than any of the other adventures in this anthology, but what can be found is on par with the level that the characters would be when going through this specific adventure. A lot of what is found is stuff that will simply be converted to gold. Gems, for example. They will also find a crown and a silver chalice. Again, all stuff that can be sold off for the gold value or bartered for other items. There are, however, 3 items of note. A mariner's plate, armor which, when worn, gives you a swim speed equal to your overall speed, a ring of evasion that lets you make a successful dexterity save, and a trident of fish command, which has a few cool features to it. It lets you dominate beast, provided that specific beast has a swim speed. It can be thrown and used either one-handed or two-handed as a weapon, and has topple. The big reveal, of course, at the end of the adventure is that the Black Dragon is actually the captain of the pirates. Of course, one of the elemental gems is going to be found in that dragon's hoard. The adventure can end in a few different ways. Either the players will perish at the claws or acid of the Black Dragon. They will defeat or scare off the Black Dragon and find both elemental gems to restore the weather vane, or they will only find 1 gem and the weather vane will remain broken. Should that weather vane remain broken, harsh weather will ravage Respite, leaving it in ruins, and will force those left alive to move to a new home. Should the party restore the weather vane, they are rewarded with up to 800 gold, and possibly with a stone of good luck if they played their cards right. Pushing on with our streak of evil dragons, and we'll find that the next adventure features a white one. Shivering Death is designed for level 11 characters and revolves around an adult white dragon. The key plot points are that there is a heat wave taking place in an otherwise frigid area, that the characters will be tasked with obtaining the remains of a frost giant in order to break the heat wave. Those remains are going to be found in the lair of an adult white dragon. To make matters worse, there are 2 opposing factions of frost giants also seeking out those remains. So the party is going to have to tread carefully, as they will be at the crosshairs of 2 opposed frost giant factions, as well as the target of that adult white dragon. The adventure begins at the home of a sage. She tells the party that the heat is not natural. Crops have withered, streams have turned to dust, things melt, even in the shade. The adventure takes place mostly within the ice caves of the White Dragon's lair. Oddly, it kind of looks to me to be among the shortest of all of the adventures in this book. While the lair map has a few locations to it, it all appears to me that the majority of this adventure is going to really be via battles and conversation between the 2 frost giant factions. Fighting them is an option, but simple conversation can also be a viable alternative, and in chatting with them, the characters might also gain some potential allies in helping with the boss fight at the end of this adventure. There is an illusionary wall that, after discovering, will have, on the other side of it, an emerald-encrusted short sword, but it's otherwise not magical in any way. You can just kind of sell it for gold. There's 100 foot of rope and a potion of growth, but don't let that fool you, as there are a lot of other fun items peppered throughout this adventure. Once the Frost Giant's remains are found, they will discover that there is a parchment with a ritual on it that will break the heat wave. Once that is returned to the home of the sage, the ritual can be formed and the heat wave will be broken. Should the characters have slain the adult white dragon, the sage makes them a deal that should they go back to the lair, the dragon's lair, and bring every coin back so that it can be dispersed among the townsfolk, then in 3 months' time, the local blacksmith is going to forge for them a frostband, a magical weapon that dishes out an extra 1d6 worth of frost damage. Of course, the players could also keep the gold for themselves from the lair. It's about 5,000 gold in all. Our next adventure contains not one, not two, but 3 dragons. A Copper for a Song is designed for level 12 characters and takes place in a location called God's Breath. Those of you that played Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel may recognize this location, as that's where it's from. But if you're not familiar with that adventures, no worries. It's really not necessary for this one. As the title of this adventure indicates, the key plot points are that the players are to undertake a quest to locate lost verses of a magical song that can replenish the soil of a dying land. Of course, the verses will be found within an adult copper dragon's lair. The good news: copper dragons are traditionally chaotic good. The bad news: this adventure also contains 2 green dragon wormlings. To get the copper dragon to find its lair, the players will first have to encounter a hill giant camp where 6 total giants are resting. And the first thought might be to march in with sword swinging and spell slinging, but there are 3 possible options to try before devolving to combat. The players can attempt to bribe the hill giants. You never know. They may make great allies for what's to come. Or the players can attempt to intimidate them and scare them. Or they can attempt to entertain the hill giants with some form of performance, be it jokes, bad dad jokes, dancing, whatever. Failing any of that, and it will devolve into combat. But should the players see a victory here and they find a decent amount of treasure, nothing super major, but there are some fun items. One of them of note is a +2 shield. Passing that obstacle, and the adventurers will soon find themselves at the White Dragon's lair. Soft music fills the air, as does the faint scent of candy in certain areas. Now, this is not a throwback to this video's second adventure, but is instead a form of laughing gas. They'll know it by both the scent, as mentioned it smells like candy, but the gas also hangs in the air with a purple fog. The remainder of this adventure takes place within the Copper Dragon's lair. In and around the lair, the party will encounter kobolds, as well as an odd space that contains 3 piles of treasure. Written in Draconic above each pile is a sign that reads, "Keep, Trade, and Dump." Should someone touch an item found in the keep or trade pile, then the Copper Dragon's shed-off scales will magically begin to swirl around and will slice at whoever touched that pile. Grabbing something off of the dump pile does nothing. And there's some fun stuff to be found in these piles, but nothing of much power. Mostly items that can be sold off for gold. And that seems to kind of be a safe theme throughout this adventure. The party may also encounter a purple worm that moves in and around the large cavern areas, but upon making their way to the Copper Dragon's lair, they won't find the Book of Verses within. But they may find, in addition to the adult Copper Dragon, 2 smaller green dragon wormlings. Caution is very much advised at this point. While the copper dragon is of good alignment, the two wormlings are normally of an evil alignment. However, Mama Dragon has adopted them, and as such, they are currently of a neutral alignment. But make no mistake, any ill step towards them, and that good aligned copper dragon is going to attack in order to defend what she sees as her babies. The only way to obtain the book of verses is to impress the copper dragon. Even then, she will only loan the book out for 1 month, but that's certainly enough time to make copies for the village. The wrapping up of this specific quest suggests that the party, upon getting the book, saves the day, replenishes the soil, and if they made friends with the copper dragon, that she may have additional quests for them, perhaps to even locate her adoptive wormling's parents. And I cannot help but feel that there is a big missed opportunity here to tie this adventure in with the first one to appear in this anthology, Death at Sunset, since it directly involves a green dragon wormling, but there is sadly no crossover to it. Now, I hope you guys are ready to explore our last adventure. It's all about an ancient dragon. Dragons of the Sandstone City is also designed for level 12 characters and revolves around an ancient blue dragon. The key plot points describe that there is an ancient blue dragon that is preparing a nefarious ritual, but there is someone with knowledge on how to stop it, and in her possession is a brass dragon's egg that is seemingly the key. The characters will be tasked with solving a riddle given by a sphinx so that they may enter the Sandstone City, where the ancient blue dragon has made its lair. Once inside, they can use the egg to unleash its magic and end this foul ritual. The blue dragon, Antradusk, if I remember correctly, has wreaked terror across the land. He has recently slain his rival, a brass dragon. A human mage named Eldamir found the brass dragon's egg in the Sandstone City and has given it to the characters to stop the blue dragon's ritual. Okay. Full stop. This is one of those tropes that I'm not a fan of. Major non-player character finds important object, knows what needs to be done with it, but leaves the area that it was found in and gives it to the players for them to return it back to that same area, again, that it was found. I find this to be a lack of creativity. It's a very tired trope, and there's no sinister evil plot by this mage. She was certainly capable of saving the day back when she found it, but I'm going to go off on a tangent here. The egg. Okay, so she gives the egg to the party and tells them to seek out the Sphinx so that they can enter the Sandstone City, the same city that she just came from, which means that she already knows the Sphinx's riddle's answer, or she was able to completely and totally bypass that requirement to enter that city. Apologize for the digression there. So they go to the Sphinx. It gives them a riddle. You've come to meet me at my temple, and I'll give you all of it that you ask for. Yet no matter how much of it you take, you will always leave with less than before. What was it? Well, the answer is time. Okay, the Sphinx says, "Cool, go into the desert." The Sandstone City it's in the desert. I mean, if you can't tell, this specific adventure is a little under my skin. There's a lot about it that just doesn't spin right. I like the concept, but it's just loaded with stuff that just doesn't make any sense. Eventually, the party makes it to the Sandstone City, and upon approach, they see the ancient blue dragon take off and fly away from the city. It won't return until the finale of the adventure, so the party is free to explore without worry of encountering that sinister ancient blue dragon. The map itself is pretty cool, pretty colors, and the layout is balanced too. There are 16 total locations and a lot of basilisks to fight. There are roaming mummies, gargoyles, and a genie. Sadly, the genie won't grant to the party any wishes. Upon finding the blue dragon's hoard, the brass dragon egg begins to shed a faint light and will then crack open, which will cause it to shed even more light into the lair. As the light reaches out, that's when the ancient blue dragon returns. The characters will have about 1 minute to hide if they don't wish to instantly enter battle. whoever is holding the egg can use it, although it's less of a you can use this and more of a, well, the egg shatters and weakens the blue dragon. Lucky you kind of moment. The shattered egg causes two things to happen. One, it weakens the ancient blue dragon by reducing its hit points by 200, and its stats are like that of an adult blue dragon, and to all the characters that helped bring the egg to the blue dragon's hoard, they all gain a charm of Kazimiyoko glory, which allows them to choose one of three effects. Fire lets them cast Wall of Fire spell. Light lets them regain 8d6 hit points, or Revenge. A melee weapon that they're holding is infused with Might, which can in turn dish out an extra 3d6 damage to the blue dragon. Regardless of which charm is picked, the charm itself then disappears, so you can only pick one thing, so do be sure to choose wisely. Defeating the ancient blue dragon opens up its hoard, which is ripe for the taking. The players will find about 50,000 gold, several gems, an animated shield, a potion of invisibility, and a potion of speed. Should they fail, then one of two things is going to happen. Either their corpses will rot and their belongings will become part of the blue dragon's hoard, or the dragon will complete its ritual and resurrect several of its ancient ancestors, who will then terrorize and subjugate the region. And the adventure specifically states that it leaves the fate of what happens up to the DM to flesh out. I don't know. I think this adventure is my least favorite in the anthology, only because there are too many elements that just don't fit right, which is very disappointing because I was really wanting the final adventure in this book to be epic in scale. I also don't like that we are facing off with an ancient blue dragon, but really because of the cracked bronze egg, it's really just a adult blue dragon, which are still powerful, but it's not ancient. Still, there is enough here for me to work with and redo so that it could kind of fit my table's play style. Across this anthology, we've seen a silver dragon manipulating cults, a brass dragon being framed, a bronze dragon babysitting, a gold dragon becoming a baker. Well, you guys just watched. Obviously, I didn't spill the beans on every possible spoiler. Otherwise, this easily could have been a 10-hour video. But hopefully, I gave you enough to determine if it's piqued your curiosity, or at the very least, if it's cemented into your mind that you just don't want it. Overall, despite the tonal whiplash and the occasional lore hiccup, this anthology offers a selection of dragons for a wide swath of player levels, but I have picked out my favorite adventure from all of these. Before I tell you what it is, I need to deeply thank all of my YouTube member and Patreon supporters, as their contributions to the channel have made it so that I didn't need to take on any sponsored ads for today's video. And come on, everyone's going to skip all of those anyway, right? If you'd like to check out my Patreon, I'll leave a link down below me here, as well as down in the description. Now, for the favorite adventure, let me know which one was yours down in the comment. But for mine, I'd have to say that it's For Whom the Void Calls, the one that featured the brass dragon, but specifically because of the Bag of Devouring. I will also state here on the back end, and as odd as it may sound, there's only one adventure in this entire anthology that I'd leave exactly as is and run it page by page, word for word from the book. All the rest, I'm already working on tweaks to make them that much more. But all in all, I'd likely leave Baker's Doesn't completely alone and run it as is. Even though it's a bit on the juvenile side, I'd run it exactly as presented. Of course, it'll have to be for the right crowd, but I'd like to hear from you. Which of these adventures really stood out for you? What would you do to tweak them and make them extra special? Let me know down in the comments. And until next our paths cross, may you not get eaten by a bag of devouring. Oh, and watch this video next.